right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of the What Now Show. I'm your host, Suryansh Basumalik, and today we are joined by yet another guest. Last time we were joined by Joe Lopez, and today we are joined by Mike Jackson, former UFC fighter, and one of the most well-rounded individuals that we have seen so far. Before we get into it, Mike, why don't you introduce yourself? Tell the viewers what they need to know about Mike Jackson.
Yeah, well, for me, I like to call myself a media personality who also fights. I'm currently in the UFC, but I also spend a lot of time covering sports as well on the photography side, and just I can do interviews, I have podcasts, I have shows and things like that. I'm just a versatile person, and right now, just given everything going on in the country. I've definitely been on the social justice and on that movement, given how important times are right now.
Yeah, we've seen your social media recently, and I've got to say what you've been doing with standing up for social justice over the past few months over lockdown and everything. It's pretty admirable what you've been doing. So I think what I first want to get into is how did you get into the MMA scene in the first place? What got you interested into mixed martial arts at first?
Growing up, I was just a kid of like fighting. Yeah, I was a fan of boxing, pro wrestling. I was into the old school kung fu movies. So for me, the combat, the fighting, I've always gravitated toward it. And then as I was an adult, it's just you're in the right place at the right time. Just perfect situations and storms kind of take place, and that's kind of what happened with me in fighting. I was in college when it happened. So for me, I never had dreams or aspirations of being in the UFC or anything like that. But fast forward, 12 years and 12 years when I started. I'm fighting in the UFC. I've had some, I fought on a pay-per-view. I'm in just a great position right now, So it's been an incredible journey. But like I said, I have to use my platform um, for a positive change, I think, and I feel I just have to use my platform to do what's right, and that's what I'm doing.
Yeah, that's a completely admirable deed. In fact, that's I completely respect you for that. I think the whole world who's viewing your platform does too. And on another level, what? Of course, you've fought quite a few notable fights recently. Of course, you've had CM Punk under your wing as well. So when it comes to training for a guy like Punk, you know, he never fought before, right? He had the Mickey Gall fight. However, you didn't really have much footage of him. So when it came to training for that fight, did you have much of a game plan going into it, or did you have anything to consider with like what he's gonna throw at you, or did you just say, you know what, I'm just gonna do this, he won't stop me?
Yeah, so for me, being in the sport for so long, I was really like I called the fight before he even had a fight. Like I said how both scenarios would have played out. I said how a scenario if he would have fought Gall would have played out, and then I said a scenario if we would have fought how it would have played out, and they both played out exactly how I said. And the reason it did that is because like I know fighting, and you have a guy who has no fight experience, and he tries to jump into, regardless of the level of where he's at, right? You get someone who's trying to jump into combat sports outside of these special talents who are like Olympians and like these all-star athletes, outside of people like that, you can only learn at a certain pace. And given the fact that you have this guy who is very a superstar in his own right, in his own little world, given all of these variables, like I knew it was only a limited possibility of how good he could have actually gotten, right? And with that knowledge, like I knew what I was getting into. Like, sure, he could have learned some tricky moves or something like that, like one or two little moves. But even with that, like that wouldn't have been able to stop my fighter IQ, my athleticism, my just knowing of the sport. What he was able to do wasn't going to stop that. So for me, it was really just about going out and doing what I wanted to do. And in that particular fight, I realized that the first like punch or so, like there's a difference between people who don't know how to fight and people who can't fight, right? Like you have a guy who's like just a bad fighter, and then there's people who just can't fight, and he fell under the category of not being able to fight. So for me, and I know everybody is different, but for me, I couldn't have gone out there and like really hurt this dude. Like because I could have went out there, like everybody wanted me to like really hurt this dude really bad and knock him out. Like I could have really changed his life in a negative way if I would have went out there and just melted this guy the way everybody wanted. So for me, it was because it was never really about that. Like even how the fight came about, I just kind of felt a little disrespected about how he tried to build up the Gall fight.
Yeah.
So and it was never like really personal, but it was just like, all right, we're in a fighting sport. You can't just go around saying whatever you want about people without like there being some kind of repercussions. And it was just fortunate enough for me that I was able to get that opportunity to just kind of make him pay for what he said. So going into the fight, once I realized I was like, all right, I have to go out here and prove a point. So that's why you had 30-26 on the scorecards. That's why he didn't come to the press conference at the end, because I sent him to the emergency room because he was concussed. Like following the fight, he was backstage throwing up and things like that. He was really concussed. So even the little that I did to him, it sent him to the emergency room. So imagine if I would have went out there and just really like knocked this dude out. You know what I'm saying? Who would have known what was going to happen? Because in this sport, anything can happen at any time. You know, people have died in this sport. And what would I have been like if I was it now? I mean, people are going to have their own perceptions and ideas on this, but I didn't want to be known as the guy who killed CM Punk in the cage. You know what I'm saying? And I know people would have loved to be that guy, but that's just not for me, you know? But with that said, I knew what type of fighter he was. But moving forward, like everybody else, like I know what these people are capable of. Like I train with some of the some top talent, you know, in the world. So I understand like the levels to the sport when I train with these guys. So anybody else that I fight, I'm going out there to destroy, to knock out, you know, to do what I got to do, because I understand their abilities and what they're coming to do to me, you know. So I can't really have the same game plan or
Right.
strategy. It's different. But again, I knew that going into it. Like what I showed in the Punk fight was just that. I did that for that fight in particular. Moving forward, you're gonna see a different Mike Jackson.
Right. I mean, so that brings me to my next question, actually. So, I mean, obviously, I could tell by like the footage of your fight, you're really good at what you do. So, when it came to, let's say, the Mickey Gall fight, it wasn't really your best performance. However, I know it's a bit of an sensitive topic to get into. However, how would you? What was your? Now that you think about it retrospectively, what went wrong in that fight? What did you give away too early that allowed him to capitalize on that submission?
Well, I wouldn't say I gave anything away. I don't want to use the ill prepared or anything like that. But it was very much an off the couch fight. I had this amazing opportunity, and it was one that I just wasn't gonna turn down. Was I fully prepared? No, I wasn't. You know, but that's just life. Like you get in these situations, and you just have to deal with it the best that you can. For me, in particular, with the fight, I didn't know he was as long as he was. I remember for the buildup of the fight, you know, you look at the stats, and that's things that I like to look at. I like to look at people's length and their reach, because of my style. Those are factors that come into play. Being able to know distance and things like that. But for him, when I looked him up, I can't remember what they said his reach was, but it was really shorter than what it was actually. And he was even bigger than he was than what I expected. So in the fight, and I remember the fight, I was circling out, and it was more of an off. What put me down was it was off balance as opposed to the actual strike itself. But the way he was able to land that was because he was longer than I like. The move that when I was circling and with my hands down, I do that, but I do it because I know the distance and reach of the person. But in the fight, I was just off, and he was closer than I expected. He caught me, and then in the ground, he's good. He's a brown belt, and I blinked, and he was there on my back, and he subbed me. But it was just it was one of those things, man.
Yeah, it
It
happens. Yeah,
happens. Yeah,
yeah,
it happens. But
exactly.
yeah, that's really what it was. As far as the golf, take nothing from him. The dude is, he's a really good kid as far as talent. Brown. I want to say maybe he's even a black belt. Got his black belt recently. I know for sure he's a brown belt though. But the kid is good. And me going in there the way I went in there, it was bound to happen.
Yeah, well, at this point, forgive me for noticing the little things. However, I was really intrigued by the little picture you have sitting behind you of the
Which
guy
one?
knocked out cold. The other guy. Yeah,
Uh,
yeah, yeah. Is that you standing tall, or who is that?
that's me. That's me. It's a
Ah,
shot of myself.
because other than the two fights you had in the UFC, there's not a lot of people know about your history back in when you were kickboxing and doing jiu-jitsu. So
Mhm.
when you were in like those fights, how do you, and actually this actually applies to all of the fights. Like even in the UFC. How because this is something that's not really talked about. Signing contracts and speaking to management, especially on the UFC level. What was it like dealing with people like Dana White and Sean Shelby on the management? Because I imagine that when it comes to dealing with personalities, people tend to take much more of a lighter approach, and like brush it off the table a bit. Did you feel that kind of hostility, or were you treated as just another fighter?
No, again, I'm in a different space, and I'm in a different sort of situation. So, my experiences are completely my own. Like you're not gonna have any other fighter for the most part that's gonna be in the situation that I'm in. So for me, I don't necessarily have or had those kinds of issues. Everything for me was pretty cut and dry. And I'm fine with that because again, I understand what this is about having me fight in the UFC. I'm cool with it. It's just part of the game.
You say you're still a UFC fighter, so do you still plan on getting back into the cage sometime soon, or is there anything in the works?
Yeah, I was offered a fight. It was on the Argentina card. Um, I ended up getting injured for that training, getting prepared for that fight, so it didn't go through. And then it's been a steady case of just getting the body better because right now, like I can't go in there like on a regional level, like type of fight or anything like that. I have to go out there at my most optimal, right? So for me, I've spent a lot of time at the UFC PI, working on my body, working on getting better, training methods and things like that. So for me, I've always had aspirations of competing again. So just given everything kind of going on with the pandemic, for me, I'm not trying to go to the Kumite on Fight Island. Just with everything going on, like if it were a different scenario, where you get to go and it's more kind of pre-Rona, then yeah, because you really get to experience life, but being on a 16, 17 hour flight in this bubble and getting poked and prodded, and that's not for me. It's bad enough to kind of do that regularly, but I kind of want to stay over here in the States.
Yeah.
But as far as as far as the fight goes, hopefully we get something. I was obviously well, pre-Rona, I was trying to get prepared to maybe like a May fight,
Oh,
but
okay.
then everything kind of going on. So right now, I feel more best for like a December fight would be solid. And we're just kind of waiting to hear, waiting around right now. There's a little buzz going on, but nothing of any
Are there
substance
any
at the moment
names?
to mention.
Are there any
I,
names
you know,
that?
I, it's nothing of any substance right now. We're just working behind the scenes on everything,
Ah, okay,
but
okay.
hopefully something comes to fruition here pretty soon, and then we have an announcement to make.
Ah, excellent. Well, I'll be keenly waiting for that one because your fights are rather fun to watch, to be honest. Even like the build up to it, the media days. and like seeing the few
Mm,
interviews. So when like all the personas that you see between fighters. Speaking of which, I
right.
really want. Speaking of like the lead up to fights, of course, we have coming within the next 24 hours. We have another big, few set of big fights coming up, which is the Khabib and Gaethje card. So,
Mhm.
who you got for that fight? We've got several big fights on that card. We've got
Man.
Kutalaba and Ankalaev. You've got Gaethje and Khabib, of course. You've got Whitaker and Cannonier. So, who you got for all these
Mhm.
fights?
Man, we have some amazing fights, and this is probably one of the cards where, like, I really don't know. And because for me, I'm just a fan of the sport. Like, unless like I know you personally, obviously I want you to succeed. But really, I'm just here for the good fights. In between the Justin and Khabib fight, I'm a fan of both guys. I know Justin personally. I get to train out at his gym when I'm out in Denver at Team Elevation. So I have a little bit more of a connection with him. Um, I'm gonna like for me, I'm leaning Justin simply because like I've seen what he's done. I've seen the hard work. I didn't really know him prior to the UFC. Like I've heard like these stories about this kid, and then he comes in and I get to see him live, and I'm really amazed. So the progression of Justin, I love it. I love to see where he's come. But I mean, it's Khabib, man. The dude he's a different beast, man. Like when I watch him, it makes me want to go train in jujitsu. And I don't, that's not my, I'm more of a, obviously I'm a striker, but even watching him, I'm like, all right, dog, let's go roll, you know? Um, I'm leaning Justin just because of the personal connection with, with the ties. But anything can happen this is the
Yeah,
highest level. These are possibly the two, best lightweights right now.
yeah, yeah.
So it's just one of those things. Who knows? But I'm going with Justin in that fight.
And how about the Cannonier Whitaker fight?
It's another one. Jared has shown some amazing talents. And Whitaker, former champion, he has a thing. He has something to prove as well. I Man, I don't even like. I'm just gonna go Jared just because I know his team. And again, I'm a fan of his as well. But again, anything can happen. If Robert wins it, then he wins it. But I'm gonna go with Jared in this one.
Yeah, well, as a matter of fact, I rather defer with you on the Khabib fight because I think both fighters are amazing, but me personally as a fan, I'm leaning a bit more towards Khabib.
Right.
Well, we'll just have to see about that.
Well,
Anyhow,
I agree. Here's the as you're saying that here's the pivotal that I didn't get to mention. Khabib is known to take like some clean shots. Like, he has a solid chin. He'll
yeah,
take some shots to get hit. Justin Gaethje is not someone you want to get hit cleanly by.
ex-
I've seen it in fights. I've seen it in the gym. I've never been in there with him. I'll just be watching from the side. But I've seen what this guy is able to do. And he isn't this isn't a Conor McGregor type of puncher. Like this dude, he's a different type of puncher, And if he catches Khabib cleanly with some of these strikes, I don't know if he's going to be able to withstand that. That's just me. But like I said, it's a
yeah.
fight.
He
Anything can
said
happen.
he said it in the lead up to the fight. If Khabib gets him against the cage, Justin's screwed. But if Justin can land 4 clean leg kicks or a few clean strikes to the face, the fight's going Justin's direction.
And I didn't even think about the leg kick. I forgot about that too. Like he has this weird ability. Like he can throw leg kicks in the clinch. It's really weird. Like his ability, what he's able to do with the kicks. But then he throws them at like these weird angles too. And it's really hard to defend. And if it lands solid, like it's a thud, man. And it does some damage to the
Yeah.
muscle.
He's underestimatedly quick to his punches. I mean, you saw that in the Tony fight, every time, like they're having exchanges. Of course, he did get knocked down at the end of the second round, but then again, whenever it came to like first to the punch, when they're throwing it at the same time, they throw the punch at the same time, but Justin lands so much quicker and he can.
Well, the reason why is because Justin throws these shorter shots. Like they're shorter, they're compact, and they're gonna get from point A to point B quicker. So that's why, in that, like, why you mentioned that he's landing these shots faster and more, precise. Well, he's throwing shorter shots. He's right there in your face, and he just launches it. Like, there's no wind up, there's no telltale to it. It's just there, and that's the difference. And Khabib won't have to deal with that. He won't have to do it. And again, he's quick too. We saw how he dropped Conor in
Yeah.
the fight with the right hand. But Justin is a quick. He's deceptively quick, man.
Yeah.
And like I said, this is gonna make for an amazing fight.
Yeah, because like Khabib was talking about how in the lead up to the fight as well, like as you mentioned, he spoke about how he comes cleanly with those smaller shots. But then again,
Mm.
what I think Javier Mendez also pointed out along with Khabib was that when he's throwing such strikes, he isn't moving around much, and that also makes him a very still target for someone like Khabib to strike him with. So it makes it a it's dangerous, but you never know what Khabib's strike, like with the Conor fight. What Khabib did, like from what I saw, was that he wasn't very active with the striking, and then suddenly he ducks under and throws this wild overhand, and it completely surprises and rocks Conor, and that's how it all started falling apart. So
Man, it's a fight though. That's the thing. Like, it's a fight. It's anything. Like, it's a game of, like, when they say it's a game of inches, like that is like, I don't think people understand. Like, if you're not a fighter, if you've never been in there, you don't really because if you're just watching it from TV, you just kind of see two guys kind of like swinging and doing their thing, right? But like when you're in the fight, we're talking like a punch can miss you by that. Like, for me, right? So when I used to teach boxing and things like that, kind of got away from it. Teaching not for me. But one thing what I would tell people, like when you're slipping shots, is let's say you're slipping a jab, right? The perfect slip is if like the punch grazes your ear, because you're just out of the way of not getting caught, but then I don't have to cover that distance right back. So
yeah.
if I slip, if the punch is coming here and I kind of slip here, that's perfect. But if I slip way over here, I have to come that time travel. And so with Justin, he has these like little movements. So you don't really have to be like fully out of the way. You just have to be enough out of the way to not get hit, And so when you're in there, you may miss a punch by like that much. But then what if you're that much closer, right? And then you get caught, and that's the knockout. And you know what I'm saying? So it's that's the distance sometimes in these fight altering, moments, is literally like, what's that? That's a half an inch. You know what I'm saying? So it's a crazy game that we play out there.
It really is, man. Of course, we're all a lot of us, the media, people in the media, anyone from like if people like me, anyone who hasn't got in the cage, you wouldn't really understand the real feeling of being put in such a position until you get in the cage. Which is why it's actually quite fortunate that we can talk to people like you. So, speaking of which, I want to talk to you more about dealing with the adversity in the fight. When you're picking yourself up after a loss, like, let's say for example, case in point, let's just take Mickey Gall for an example, right? After the Mickey fight, I'm pretty sure you were pretty bummed out because it was the first round. It was not a really good feeling. So how did you pick yourself up after that whole process?
Man, I think I just have a different outlook, because for me, I look at it's more like the competition. I'm doing it just to like it's not a game per se that I'm playing, but it's still in that realm, right? Like, you're gonna have people who, all right, case in coming back to the Justin Gaethje fight, right? Like, Justin made a comment in an interview recently where he was just like, "Yo, like if he died in the cage, this would be the fight where he would want to die in the cage." I'm just like, wait, what? Like, not like I'm not trying to die in the cage. So now I understand still that there's a possibility that could happen. I understand that, right? But I don't have the mindset of like, yo, I would die in the cage. Like, I don't have that mindset. So for me, it's a little bit different. Following the fight, I didn't even realize until about one. What was that after party? It was we had a little after Derek and I we threw like a little after because we fought on the same card. We had like a little after party at night, and I was sitting there, and it was real loud in the club or whatever, and then it hit me. It was like 1 a.m. in Vegas, and I was like, ah, shit, I fought in the UFC. Like it was like a real delayed reaction. So by that time though, like yeah, it sucked to get the L, especially in a manner that I did. But at the end of the day, like I knew I was all right. I didn't sustain any crazy injuries or anything like that. So at the end of the day, I was disappointed, but like I knew like I could pick myself back up again. I knew it wasn't this moment in life where I had to like come to a crossroad or anything like that. It was just it was a shitty experience, and we just had to rebound from
Right. So, I think, yeah, in my opinion, that's probably the perfect way of dealing with it. And when you're talking about the reactions, I spoke with Joe Lopez recently, the coach of Alex Volkanovski. He was talking about how, when it came to like those late reactions after the fight, it's kind of crazy, like because there's these different approaches towards it, and that really allows people to achieve their success. And that I think
it.
when it came to the CM Punk fight, you could really see how that played in your favor. So, and now I want to also shift sides a bit and move further into another piece of news that came up recently, which was about Leon Edwards. He was removed from the UFC rankings recently, when the UFC says that it was because of his inactivity. Now, recently, a few figures came out from MMA Instagram page, Madness MMA. Shout out to them. They spoke about how Leon was inactive for 460 days, after which he was taken out, and people like Anthony Pettis were taken out after are still in the rankings, uh, because they fought. Anthony Pettis hasn't fought for 462 days. Conor McGregor, who we've spoken about, hasn't fought for 750 days. GSP over 560 days, and the list just carries on. You see where I'm going with this. There's a multiple other
Mm-hmm.
fighters mentioned in there. So when something like this is happening, and another fighter who came out in defense of Leon was Chris Cyborg. She said that fighters shouldn't be treated the way they are. What do you make of something like this happening to a fellow fighter? Them being taken out of the rankings. Do you think it was a fair call?
So, I mean, fair is very subjective here when we're talking about like people have to remember like this is a business. Like the UFC in itself is a business, right? And they're definitely thinking business first. Like you're not thinking fighter first because the fighter is the commodity, and you understand what the commodity is. So it's like one of those risk reward kind of situations.
Yeah,
But in regards to Leon Edwards, I have no idea what it's like behind the scenes with him. I don't know what it's like in those types of dealings. Could it be as simple as it literally could be as simple as like the people don't like Leon Edwards. Like someone doesn't like Leon Edwards, and this was just he hadn't fought in a certain amount of time, and this was just an opportunity for them to kick him out. It could be as simple as that, or it could be something where you know they offered him some fights, he turned them down, and then it could have been a number of variables. So I don't, man, it sucks 100%. Like if I'm looking at this from the fighter side, I get, from his perspective, how a shitty position he's in. Like I get it, but I mean, that's
business is
I
business.
don't have enough information to make an educated and logical decision or choice or give an opinion about it based off
Yeah.
of that. It's a bad situation 100% because you can see in Leon like you can tell this dude really wants to fight. He's not out here just talking shit. But again, people have to remember this is a business, man, and I don't know what happened with the business dealings. That's on them.
Yeah, that makes sense. And It's kind of a respectable thing you just did. You didn't really put an opinion on it because, making these uneducated calls just leads to further controversy later, which is kind of a problem we're facing today with not just fights, so many different
Mhm.
places. That's actually why social, like, on that level, another way that you can really link it is with your stand against social justice.
Yeah.
There's so much misinformation in today's day, and it's really crazy how it's all playing out in this day and age. So I think that brings me to my next question, which is, when you're standing up for something like social justice in this manner, and of course I can see who you support with the Biden 2020 shirt you have on. So when it comes to something like this, how do you deal with when you're making statements out in public or on social media, like saying what you want about social justice? How do you deal with any person who's hating on the content that you're spreading about social justice or undermining anything that you have to say? Do you try and respond to them, or do you just ignore and block it out loud?
It's all situational. I like to call I'm a counter troll, so to speak, right? So here's how I look at this whole situation. My stance and point of view is just simply this: is simply having it where everyone in the country is treated equally, right? No matter your sex, race, whatever. I'm my only time I'm really like I'm gonna call someone is like if you're an asshole, right? If you lack empathy for someone else, right? I'm not gonna like come in and just roast you just because, right? So we're being that my stance is just that is like I want equality. If you're and when we say Black Lives Matter, like everyone knows what that means, right? Like
Yeah.
we like if you're sitting here disputing that, you're being willfully ignorant and a contrarian, right? So my stance is simply like everyone should be treated equally and have a fair shake, right? If you oppose that, you're saying that people who are just like you should not be treated equally. Like they're because we're at a time where there's no gray area. Like before all this, there was people kind of had their opinions or whatever. There was a little bit of gray area. But at this moment in time, like things are different. Like you can't treat like you can't have some these issues over here. You can't treat these issues currently like you did 10 years ago. You have to adjust the treatment method as well, right? So being that we're in a time where there is no gray area, it's a black or white thing, whether you're because and it's not a race war, by the way, as well. Like people like to say it's a race war. It's not a race war. It's an anti-racist versus racist war. It's a war on common sense and empathy, right? So if my stance is that black people should be treated fairly, like that's it, nothing more, and you're opposing that, you're telling me that I don't matter. And at this point, I can't just be like, all right, that's just your opinion. You're telling me like you don't care if another person lives or dies, or if they have a sustainable like way of living. There is no disputing this. There is no arguing in it. Arguing in this, right? So when I encounter these people who are anti Black Lives Matter or racist, or even people who are racist adjacent or closet racist, they may not even know that they have these ideas because it's just ingrained in them. It's ingrained in their way of life and in their beliefs. They don't know any better as well. Like some of these people, they genuinely don't know any better. But here's the thing, and this is how I distinguish between who's like a troll and who's being a willfully contrarian, or someone who wants to learn. And I put a pin in that. The reason I'm able to do this, like over the pandemic, I've had conversations with business owners. And these are all people who reached out to me. I've had conversations with nuns who were trying to learn and be better. So when I'm engaging with these people, I can tell like you're gonna have someone who's just gonna say, nah, blue lives matter. All right, well, we know what category you fall in. And then you're gonna have people who are like, hey, when you say Black Lives Matter,
Yeah,
what is it
yeah.
that you mean? Right? You're gonna have two different and so at this point coming back, if you're being a contrarian, you know, if you're just sitting here again, I'm not talking about when Black Lives Matter first kind of popped up and people kind of were like unsure about it, because I had those conversations too about 3 or 4 years ago. But again, at this moment in time, right here, if you're still debating this, you're telling me that you're the opposition, right? And when you're the opposition, there's nothing I can really say to convince you to change your stance, right? Because when coming back to looking at this as a war, you have it where two sides, right? And the sides it's irrelevant on who's on what side, but you have one side over here trying to, whether it's impose your beliefs or ideas or whatever, which is, let's say this side is the Black Lives Matter side. We're trying to impose equality and empathy, right? And you have the other side who's literally the opposite of that. And that's what people don't understand is like, you have to look at it in that way. You have to look at it as these people are opposite of us. Like people are so confused. It's like, how can these people be racist and how can they support them? It's like, because that's the team that they've chose. And that's the side. So in their mind, like they're right.
They don't know that they're wrong. They don't know. They don't see the. They don't see the other.
But from their perspective, they're not wrong. And that's the thing. From their vantage point, they're right. Like when you think about, and it's an extreme case, but when you think about Hitler, what he did, Hitler didn't think he was a bad guy. And that's the other, you know, being in the quarantine and having these conversations and being able to, you know, think and ponder on all these things. That was the other thing I kind of thought about is like, you know, no one sees himself as the bad guy. You know, no one sees himself as being a wrong. Everyone sees their ideas and beliefs as being the correct way of doing things until it's proven that it's wrong. But at this moment in time, these people haven't been proven that they're wrong because they're still able to just go out in the streets and wear their MAGA hats and Trump flags, and they're able to cause all of this rift in society. They're able to go out here and antagonize people and kill people. Like they've been catching to kill people, and there's been no sort of repercussions for all this, right?
Yeah.
So we're just living in a time, man, where you have it's. And it was bound to happen, just given the system that's in place right now. The system is a perfect system. The system is doing what it was designed to do. It's been designed we change the way slavery is to this new system. It's been made to oppress people, no matter the color. That's the other thing. It's like it's designed to keep lower classes down. Right? Like that's just if you look at it from black and white, the system is designed to keep the lower socioeconomic classes down and sort of keep that division. But what happens is the system is purposely keeping minorities in that position. Now, yeah, are there white people in that position too? 100%. And they're getting it too. Like these people, these MAGA people who support Trump, like they're in the same boat. It's like this dude don't care about y'all either, right? So we all attack this one class of people, but we all know who's the majority of that class because of the way the system is set up. You know, so at this point, with this war that's going on right now, like that's what it's about. It's about whether it's destroying the system or changing it or something, or altering it. It doesn't matter. Like that's what has to be changed, and that in itself is going to help people change just their mentality on this, because all this going on right now is just learned behavior. That's all. It's just learned behavior and propaganda.
So,
and
yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah. So what I was saying was, so early on when you chose journalism, to go into journalism and covering not just fights but a lot of other topics, is that actually why you chose it? You know, to also provide as a step for social justice, or did you think that after you got into it, oh shit, well, I think I can use it for this too?
Well, no, yeah. So for me, I went to school. I'm a sociologist, so I've always like studied people and things like that. That's just I'm a people. Why? That's just my thing, right? The fighting came first. Yeah, fighting came first, but this came at and it was at a different time as well. Like I didn't know I didn't know it was going to shape into this. I was already doing the fighting thing. I had started doing, with the video blogs that I was doing, which kind of shifted over to writing articles and stories on the website. And then it was just a shift in the culture. And I realized that I could use my platform for a positive change. And that's what it was about. So it was that shift, given everything kind of going on, and just knowing what I've learned in school through my personal experiences. I feel that I have this experience and knowledge to make a positive change, and that's all it was.
Yeah, that's amazing. I mean, that's completely admirable of you, and like from me to you, that's really respectable, and I have tremendous respect for you for it. That's actually one of the few reasons why I wanted to, multiple reasons actually, I wanted to have you on, because of the way you've upheld social justice that way. So, for that whole entire community, I think I can safely say thank you on that level, because the way that you really uh, tackle social justice, and go after the people and say, like, I'm not calling you out on your opinions. Your opinions are yours, but when it comes to this situation, it's completely binary, and
Right, 100%,
yeah. So, and
one
that's
hundred percent.
and that's completely undeniable. That I can't even disagree with you there, because it's completely equality based, and not this person gets this and that person gets that. Everyone,
That's it.
yeah,
And it's so simple, but that's a crazy thing. Like it's so simple,
hard
but
for other people to get. Yeah,
people, well, it's hard for them to get because people are so like people think about themselves, right? And they think about the current situations that they're in. And like if you have this white guy in Iowa, right? And he sees like black people and minorities come in, he doesn't really get it's not them that's doing the damage, it's the system that's doing the damage, and you're placing your anger and frustration in the wrong way. It's not the black guy or the Mexican guy who is causing grief in your life. It's the upper level white management or whoever that is dictating how your industry works. It's those people you need to be upset about. You know what I'm saying? And
yeah,
people and whether it's ignorance, whether it's you've just been misguided, through manipulation, whatever it is, that's what needs to be fixed.
right. Like, I completely agree with you there. So let's move on to like actual like examples here, right? So when it came to you standing up for social justice, of course there will be people, whether you like it or not, there will be those people who will disagree with you and try to uh pose some counter perspectives, and that's
Right.
undeniable to anything you do. So
Mhm.
have you ever in public had to come into like a trade of words between someone who has a different opinion that way? If so, like, can you tell me how that played out?
Not as of recently. Before, yeah, I can maybe because I mean, especially in the fight world, like you're gonna like trust they're gonna be, you know, they're gonna be people because it's just an eclectic mix of people. You're gonna get doctors, lawyers, people who work at McDonald's, all in the same room at the same time. So you're gonna get different ideas from different people. But in fighting, a lot of times that get left at the door because you're worried about someone punching you or strangling you. So it's a little different. And then I guess it just depends on your circles or who you hang out with. For me, I know I work with some people who are like Trump supporters, and we've tried to have discussions, but these are people, man. Look, if you are a Trump supporter the way a lot of these people are, like, okay, so in the beginning, right, there are two types of Trump supporters. There are the people who support him because they're gonna benefit some way, typically financially, right?
Yeah.
And then you have people who are listening to the racist rhetoric, right? So I had a guy who less of the racist rhetoric. Well, yeah, it was a little bit less of that, but it was also like that's my guy, like that he's speaking to me. This dude was like a construction worker. He's behind on child support. Like the dude that Trump is not, he don't like you, right? But you have these people in those positions who are like cult members and like they will defend Trump to the death. And when I'm having these conversations, I'm just like, it's not worth it. It's really not worth it because these people don't have the aptitude for these conversations.
So what do you make
One
of the
and
yeah
uh,
yeah? So what do you make of the recent presidential debate between Biden and Trump? Very recent, few hours ago actually. What do you make of
yeah,
the debate?
I thought this one was a lot a lot more composed between the two. Um, one thing before I get back to debates, people like to talk like because they look at this and they're trying to pick, and then they go with the whole lesser of two evils thing. It's like, look, in this, like this isn't a regular presidential race. Like this is a difference. This isn't like Clinton and Bush or all of these previous sort of presidential races. Like this is where you have an openly racist president, an openly bigoted president in office, and people are like they're having these conversations like, well, do I pick this guy who's in the office or do I pick Joe who like pets people's hair. He may smell them a little bit. And then they may bring up some shit he did like in the 70s with the crime. So you're out of the two people we have here in this moment, you have this guy who, yeah, he doesn't have a good track record, but he's still a fairly good person. Or you have someone who is, as of recent, like we're talking about last week, who have said demeaning and racist and bigoted and hurtful and supported racists in the Klan and Boo. Like, what are we talking about here? Why would you have like? What is there to pick? What is there to decide on? Like, I don't get that, right?
Yeah,
So you have the debates and they're going back and forth, and you have like for me, like the debate isn't really for me. I was just watching it because I was ready for the like I was anxiously awaiting when I found out Biden got it. I was like, oh man, I can't wait for the debates. It's gonna be good. The first one was way wilder than I like the one I expected was a mix between the first and second one. That's kind of what I thought was gonna happen. But the first one was way wild.
and then the second one was way that
The
yeah.
second one was it was way the other way, but it was
There was still a bit
this
of tit for tat there, yeah.
a little bit. But I think overall you see where like first of all Trump is lying. Like that's the other thing. Like the dude is literally just lying, and people will take the lies and be like, yeah, that's the truth. It's like wait. You didn't even you didn't fact check yourself. And again, not to say everything Biden said was factual, but you can easily just fact check this, right? Like the
Yeah.
dude is openly lying and people just run with it. So overall, I think the debates it showed it showed what Biden is here to do, and it also showed that Trump is just a liar and he's just here to manipulate and to scare people, and you just can't allow things like that. Like you have to be smarter than that. It's 2020. It's like it's not like you don't have the internet. It's not like you don't have it, but people are just lazy right now, and we have to get rid of this lazy mentality.
Exactly. Speaking of laziness, let's get on a bit of a lighter note here. It's a bit heavy going into the politics so early. So, when with the light of COVID, for the
Mm-hmm.
past since March, a lot of activity-based stuff in our lives, going out, doing different other, going out for walks and all that, it's all reduced on a huge level. So, when it comes to you, has training? I'm assuming you go mixed martial arts, and you go to the gym and you train every now and then. So did you think was that reduced over the course of Corona, or what was it like?
Yeah, so in the beginning, I mean, well, even now, like my life hasn't really changed because I'm a homebody. I'm an introverted kind of guy until I'm out at events and things like that. So for me, it was really just Groundhog Day. Like it was kind of like the same thing over and over for me. My regular life. The only thing that really changed was the traveling for the fights and then the training. I didn't get to in the early stages. Didn't really go to the gym. Actually, didn't go much of the if at all. Um, but then because we had some hidden, or we had some people like some fighters who were in their training, they would get it, some not, false positives. So it's really hit and miss. But I ended up building my own mat in my garage. I was out at Gracie University maybe like last year sometime, and I saw how Henner um, had built the Gracie University mat, and I was so when all this is going on, I was like, you know what, just go buy a mat or build a mat like how he did. Um, so yeah, I ended up just putting that in, and then I've had some people. Well, we get some people come over and train, and get some sparring in, get some rolling in. So that was how I was able to sort of alleviate a little bit of that. Was still more, it's still inconsistent. Just giving like sometimes you wake up, you like, I don't want to do shit today, and I just go lay in bed all day. But now I'm at the point where I'm back to pretty regularly training, going to the gym, and I feel great. I feel the best I've felt in a very long time.
Yeah, well, that's amazing to hear, and it's kind of good that people are getting used to it now because COVID's becoming like a new normal at this point in our lives, and to that level as well. As while you're saying that you're feeling the best you felt in a while, that sparks like the inner fan for the mixed martial arts in me because that only just tells me that sometime soon, like as you mentioned, coming December, you might want to strap on the gloves and get into the octagon. So that'd be a fun sight to see, because I
Yeah.
I personally believe like the few fighters who've got maybe one or two fights in the cage, you haven't really seen the most that they have to offer, and that is exactly why I'd be very keen to see like a fight of yours because we saw the Mickey Gall fight, we weren't able to see much of you, and then we saw the CM Punk fight, who wasn't much of a fighter, but then again we saw a lot of dominance on your part. So it'd be really cool to see how that translates towards other fighters in the division. So if let's say we were to spill out a few names, if you were to let's say here and now call out a guy, who would that be?
Oh, I literally don't have any. I wouldn't have any. Like I'm not in that position. Just even mentally, like that's not my thing. I'm just here because I enjoy the fight, and I know that it's going to be. I don't want to. I mean, I only have two MMA, but two pro MMA, but I have the boxing. I have the kick. Like, I'm undefeated in boxing and kickboxing. Was that 5-0, 5 knockouts in those. Um, yeah, I can fight. So as long as it's comparable opposition, as far as the I'm not going in there with a dude who's like 10-0 or some shit like that, or the matchup, even the names that I've been given previously. It's been some solid matches, I feel. And so I like where Sean is going right now with the names that I've been sort of floating around. So I'm cool with it, man. I think it'll give me an opportunity to show what I can do.
Yeah, well, that'd be really fun to watch, and from like the fan perspective, being able to see that fight, as I mentioned, would be really any fight of yours would be really cool to see, and with after like having to talk to you, being able to talk to you now for a little while, I can safely say that when it comes to upholding social justice, if like let's say you get one of these fights and you show up and throw down and have an amazing performance, that would really help. And then after the case, the post fight, being able to promote it on that level a bit because people are fighters are increasingly starting to talk about it in the and UFC being the first sport to come out of COVID strong, and bring the sport up. It's helped build up a lot of viewership. So being able to put that social justice standpoint up in the front lines of the media is actually it helps promote like the message that we just
Well,
that
for
we
sure.
yeah.
Well, so here's the thing. I don't think people fully grasp, right? Like, this isn't just like a black people thing, right? This is literally like 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 racism affects everybody, whether you're actual racist or whether you're suffering from racism. Like, it literally affects everybody. So trying to change society and change the way it is, like, we're trying to change it for everybody, whether you're black, whether you're white, whether you're man, whoever. It's like we all are in, like, we're in the country together, right? And you have this division. Like, that's not a strong country. Like, how are you strong when you're internally fighting with yourself? You know what I'm saying? So this isn't just a black thing. This is an everybody thing. Like, we that's why we have these people who given the quarantine, like, they were kind of forced to see everything that's going on. Like, that's why we have so many people fighting with us now, is because they were able to witness this first. Like, before, people didn't really know what was going on, right? You kind of hear it, but then, because, like, it's hearsay. Like, let's say I'm in Houston, and then there's something that happened in, like, Montana. Like, I wouldn't have heard of that. Oh, even let's just take the George Floyd thing, right? Where
Yeah.
that was. Like, think about that. In a time where everyone was doing their thing, like, just living the regular lives, that would have been a blip. It would have been a news story. You may or may not have seen it, and that would have been the end of it. But in a time where everyone, like, there was nothing else going on, and then you have all these videos of this man being executed by the police, like, you had no other option and no other choice but to watch it. So all of these people who were, previously, you know, they didn't think racism existed, or, and again, when I say that, these are people who, they didn't make the conscious decision to have these racist ideas. It's just society, right? But these are the people who are good enough to acknowledge their own, like, misguidedness. And those are the people that are here, that are doing a major job and major effort in helping with the push. It's the people who were sitting down there, didn't, like, racism doesn't exist, until they saw racism, and they was like, oh shit, it does exist. We can't have this. You know what I'm saying? So those people are waking up. We're getting that support, and that's what it's about, because they get it.
Yeah.
They get that it's not just, because, again, if it were just black, like, yeah, let's just say, oh, just the black people that get messed up. You look at it and you're like, I mean, I hope they're all right, because it's not really affecting you. But those people who are white, they know it affects them, and they know they need to see change as well.
Yeah, that's actually the perfect way of thinking about that's the perfect analogy actually to when you're actually trying to describe the whole situation of social justice, because now that everything's all slowed down, any bump that you see, you'd be able to notice it much more.
Right.
So
Right.
that's, I think, with the amount of downside that it brought, the amount of death and distraught it's brought to people, corona, it still allowed us to stop for a second, slow down, and think about whatever has happened really on that level. And I think, as you mentioned, it's helped us notice that all these items that you would consider, as you mentioned, another blip, it's you see how significant that one blip is, because
Right.
that one blip could be two blips or three blips or four blips until you actually try to say something about it. And that analogy, in fact, is the best way of considering such a scenario and speaking out on the matter. So that way, yeah, it's a perfect way of going about it. I think I completely agree with you there.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, on that note, I think I think that's all I have to say to that level. And think if there's anything you would like to add to that level, sure, go ahead. Mention your podcast and everything. You go for it.
Yeah, man. Well, the podcast went on a hiatus, my guys. It was the truth about stuff, but You can follow me on all my social media at The Truth Jackson, the Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. Each platform is going to give you a little bit different content. The Instagram obviously is going to give you the dope visual content. The Twitter is a lot of just it's a way for me to have dialogue and conversations with people. The Facebook is more for me posting content, but I'm in the comment section. I have to, because we got the people who are in there trying to do their thing with the misinformation and all the propaganda. I'm in there checking them. That's what I do. But for me, my main thing is like get out there and vote, people. Like this is literally like I remember when Puffy was talking about vote or die back in the day, and I was like, man, like it made sense, but I was like, I don't know. At this point, it's literally vote or die. Like we lost over 200,000 people in this country, or nearly 300,000 people to this disease, or to the virus that could have been prevented. Hands down, could have been prevented. So this is definitely an election that it is vote or die. So everybody go out and vote. Not gonna tell you who to vote for, because you know who to vote for. You know to vote for Biden. I know you don't like him. I don't like him either. But this is not like, I don't like this guy. So you got to pick the lesser two evils. People pick the lesser two evils every day. You know what I'm saying? I hate that term. Pick the lesser. Look, you pick which route to go through. You get alternate routes when you put them into Google. You pick the lesser of two. You pick either the shortest route or the quickest route, as opposed to the scenic route. You know what I'm saying? Like you pick every day. You pick whether you want sushi or a hamburger. You know what I'm saying? What if you're lactose intolerant, but you really like pizza? Man, you may go eat that pizza over the burger because you just really want the pizza. We need the pizza. We need Biden right now. And then we'll hold him accountable for everything. And then, we gotta just like we're gonna hold his hand to the fire too. This isn't just like to let this dude.
Yeah. The Americans are holding Trump accountable on a lot of things, and probably they'll do the same for Biden. They did it for Obama. They did it for Clinton, and it'll go on. And that's as you mentioned. That's how the system is. And on that level, I think it's a perfect way to end it. Because having the entire vote bank coming in, it really helps bring in all the perspectives of the United States and really help one person understand what's what and what's not. So on that level,
go vote, people, go vote.
Yes, go vote. Well, on that note, Mike the Truth Jackson. This is Mike the Truth Jackson. First off, lastly, I think I really like that nickname. It really goes well with the name Mike the Truth Jackson. I love it.
I got that from my boy gave me that name way before. I got that before fighting, and it was just and it stuck, and that's my guy. Shout out to my dude Vince Camper.
Yeah, man, Vince. I respect for that guy too. He chose the perfect name there. Because you say it like it is, and that's one of the things I respect. One more of the thing that I respect about you. So on that note, thank you, Mike, and thank you all for watching. And this was another episode of the What Now Show. Do check out the socials as he mentioned it earlier. We'll mention it down in the description. And yeah, that's about it. Thanks, Mike. And yeah, that's what that was. We'll see you on the next one.